everyone, it's Margaret with Creative Stamping with Margaret. I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator, and today I'm sharing with you one of the cards from the October 2023 card class. And for the month of October, the theme is all about autumn, and we are using the Abundant Beauty Decorative Mask from the mini catalog to create our sunflowers. And then we're also using from that same catalog the Fruitful Blessings Stamp Set, and that was for our sentiment. But of course you could select a different sentiment if you wanted, but I just wanted a simple hello friend. And let me just mention these masks, the Abundant Beauty. To make the sunflower, there are 4 different masks that you'll be using, and each one, and it's really, I don't think the camera picks it up, but they're numbered 1. Let me find the 2 on this, 2, 3, and 4. So it makes it easy to line them up, and then they've got a little notch here, which makes it super simple. But in addition to those masks, there's a herringbone, there is a snowflake, and then there's one that has different leaves on it. So there's really a lot of options that you can use with those masks. But for this particular card, if you would just pull out the 1 through 4, if you have these masks and are wanting to replicate this card. Some other items I've also brought in, just this little, you notice I've got little splatters on the back of the background of the card. And this stamp is from the, I believe it was the Color and Contours. I have several stamp sets, and if you look through yours, you probably have some that have little speckles in them. So any stamp that has that background, that is optional. You can decide whether you like that look or not, but I do. Let me move this particular one out of the way. And with these masks, we are going to be using the little blending brushes, and the colors that I'm using, it looks like a lot of colors. You can cut down on some of these colors if you want, but I'm using, in the yellow family, I'm using Daffodil Delight, Crushed Curry. Then, of course, I'm also using Crumb Cake, Pecan Pie, and then Old Olive and Mossy Meadow. Do not worry about trying to make a list of the materials used. I'll have that in the description of this video. So let me set those where I can reach them easily. We're also going to be using a little linen thread for additional embellishment. The neutral adhesive back sequins. And then, of course, we will have, I'm using Pecan Pie as our background with a layer of Crumb Cake, and then we have the 2 panels of Very Vanilla, and then just a scrap of the Pecan Pie and Very Vanilla for our sentiment. So let me make a little room here. Let's go ahead and pull in one of the Very Vanilla panels so that we can do our coloring using our blending brushes. And let's see, I have a scrap piece of paper that I like to put underneath when I'm working. And I find when I use the mask that I like to use a little bit of washi tape. And I'm just going to put that on the corner to hold my card down in place. And then we're going to start with mask number 1. And you notice it has this little notch. Well, what I'm going to do, I'm looking where I want to place my sunflowers. I'm wanting to call them daisies. Let me just move this up a little bit to make sure I stay in camera more. But it has this notch, and that's so that you can use that to line your pieces up one after another. So what I'm going to do is determine if I like that, and I like the way this lays on here. So I like to just bring in an ink pen, and where that notch is, you could use a pencil or just something to mark. I'm going to make a little mark on my work page, and that's just so I hold that in place. And another, just like I did with my paper underneath my cardstock, I'm going to put just a bit of tape there. And then I'm bringing in my Daffodil Delight. That's going to be my first background color. I'm just going to apply this all over the sunflowers. Of course, you could make these sunflowers in different colors. I understand there's a variety of colors of sunflowers, that they're not just yellowish and orange color. I'm just going to lift this edge to see, yes. So I'm through with the daffodil. Next, I'm pulling in my crushed curry. And you notice I'm still leaving this down in place because I'm working on the sunflowers still. And I'm just going to pick up a little of that. And then, of course, when you're working with a blending brush, after you pick up ink, it's always good to just dab a touch before you go on. And then I'm just going right in the center, a little toward the center so that it goes out. I'm not covering the entire sunflower. This is just so it has a little bit of depth of color on the petals of the flowers. And let me pull that. Yes, that's given me the color that I like. We'll move the crushed curry off. And now I'm going to bring in my pumpkin pie. And I'm just going to take the pumpkin pie, and I'm really just going to do it right here where this center is, just going right over there, the center of the sunflower mask. You see that's solid, so I'm just going over that so that the ink just transfers right around that center part of that sunflower. Let me see how that looks. That looks perfect. So let me move this. Then we're going to take and remove this mask and go to mask 2. Now look how nice that is. Let me pull my washi tape so I can reuse that on the number 2 mask. So our number 2 is actually our leaves. Now you could take, I'm putting it down exactly where they have it lined up to be on your pattern. Now if you wanted, you could move this to a different location if you wanted your leaves. Say if you wanted your leaf, this leaf, to be somewhere else, you could, maneuver that mask. But I'm leaving it just like they are. Let me pull in. First I'm going to start with Old Olive. Just layering this on. Let's see how this looks. That looks good. I am going to come back in with just a touch of mossy metal, but in all honesty, just using the Old Olive, it looks good as well. So you may decide that you don't want to layer this on, but I'm just going to do a little up here around, going over it just a touch. So now to do the center of our sunflower. So now we're going to pull in number 3 and we're going to line that, and you see how perfectly that lines with the center of our flower. It does overlap just a touch, but that's what makes it look more realistic, the way that it lines up. And we're going to use our crumb cake background stamp. Not stamp, but ink. So let me pull in my blending brush for the crumb cake. Just add that to our mask. I love these masks that align like this. I'm hoping that they will be coming out with some additional, because it just gives you so many options. And last but not least, we are using number 4, and that's to finish off the rest of the center of our sunflower. Actually, I guess there's more than one, so sunflowers, but this lines right up, and there again I'm using that little notch as my guide. And I'm going to use the smaller brush for this one, a smaller brown. have finished the sunflowers on for the front of our card front. Look how nice those turned out. Now, and as you go through making your card, you can do one for your inside panel. And all I did for that is, let me set this to the side and we'll come back to it, is I took my interior piece and the same thing, but what I did is I decided which flower or which of the sunflowers I wanted to use, and I decided to use this little one, and I just sort of set it off to the side. And then same thing, I used a little bit of washi to hold it in place, and I'll do it quickly to show you, because as you saw, this really goes quite fast to do these sunflowers. So here we have our Daffodil Delight, and we're going to come back in with a touch of crushed curry just to get a little bit of that center on those petals going out. And last but not least, a little of the pumpkin pie. Pull in our blending brush for oranges, the orange color family. That's the nice thing about these blending brushes. You don't need one for each individual color. You can use them for a variety of colors. As you saw with the yellow, I used the same one because you can just work it into your paper and get a lot of the color out and then pick up the next color. And of course, because I did not make a notch doing this small, the little small sunflower, I'm not even using number 2, but I'm going to come in and I'm going to find where this, and just sort of lay that where I think that center would be, making sure, yes, that got the right side up. And the one way I could tell is I touch where that 2 is and let it, I could feel it raised. There we go. Last is our pecan pie. So now we have embellished the interior of our card. And then if you want to add the same sentiment, that the wishing you many blessings, that came from that Fruitful Blessings. For this card, I'm going to leave this one blank, but I'm still going to use the Hello Friend for the front. So I'm going to go ahead while I have this ink pad open, and let's just go ahead and stamp the Hello Friend. And this is with the pecan pie. I just love that brown color. I was disappointed that soft suede retired, but you know, I think I like the pecan pie a little bit better than I did the soft suede. And then I'm pulling in the double oval punch, and I'm going to punch our sentiment that ready. And I'll go ahead and punch the layering piece for that as well. As mentioned earlier, I'm using the little splatter stamp from the Color and Contour set. Now that is optional. You could leave it plain and finish the card, or add the little splatters, and I use the crumb cake background. I am going to repeat that on this card. And actually, you know, I'm going to take that back because I'm going to show you what it looks like both ways. But basically what you would do, if you do decide you want to do that, you're just going to ink up your stamp. And I stamped off once, and then I stamped randomly. I ink up, stamp off, stamp, and then I just did that throughout the card, even overlapping on some of the petals. But we're going to do this one without it so you can see what it looks like both ways and decide which way you prefer to do that. So let's go ahead and start with the assembly of our card. So we have our card base that we're going to fold in half and burnish along that fold line so we have a nice crease. Then we will add, I'm going to go ahead and add our card front with our sunflowers to the crumb cake layering panel. And you want to do this before you add it to the card front, because we need to wrap, we're going to wrap that linen thread 3 times around the top before we add that to our card base. And then the way I do this is I just like to turn it over, sort of look where I want to place that, and then I'm just going to take a glue dot let me get my little pick, here it is. And then we'll just wrap that 3 times. And I'm doing it roughly 1 inch down, maybe not even quite a full inch, but it's in that approximate distance. And then we'll just hold that, bring in our scissors. Now we can add this to our card base, and if you notice, I have just a very slight outline around, just a little peak. I decided to keep this just with a thin border all the way around. I just really like that look. And I like to use the liquid adhesive just because it gives me a little bit of play that if I need to reposition. And then I'm going to take my hands and just press on that so that that ink spreads and you don't have a big glob when it dries. Now we'll go ahead and layer our sentiment piece, and then we'll use dimensionals to add it over that string area. I'm going to slide another one up under that just so it doesn't rock. There. Remove this washi. Then the last thing we're going to do, the last two things we're going to do on this particular card is we will add a small bow that's been tied using the linen thread. And look, I still get ink on my hands. It's almost impossible when I'm working to not get ink on my hands. I think what I did was grab the base of the brush portion of the blending brush. An extra stray that I picked up on the off of the glue dots. And then I'm going to embellish with 3 of the neutrals adhesive back sequins. I really like these adhesive back sequins. And I'm glad they've come out with more colors of them. They don't give you quite as much bulk as some of the embellishments, so I think it makes it a little bit easier to mail. Then for the interior, we'll go ahead and add, whoops, where did I set that? That's the, here it is. Add this to our card interior. And that completes our Hello Friend card using the Abundant Beauty Mask. And as you can see, the difference here between the two, without adding the splatter dots in the back or with adding them, it's a beautiful card either way. This one is a little bit cleaner look, whereas this one does have that a little bit more texture and splotch to it. And I like both of them. And then of course for your envelope you can be sure to add one of your sunflowers just like we did for the interior of the card. This is Margaret Knight with Creative Stamping with Margaret. Thanks for joining me, and if you would like this video, and at the same time, if you've not subscribed to my channel, go ahead and subscribe. I've post 4 cards minimum, typically a month, because that's I like to do a lot of my card classes and show the cards that we make in those classes. So have a great rest of your day. Thank you.